One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 6 of HBO Max's Peacemaker, entitled Murn After Reading. I loved this episode, and I think this show is really finding its footing. Like, it's getting better and better each week, and it's because they're doing great character work here. We're making Peacemaker more of a three-dimensional character. It's continuing to be hilarious. And they're really pushing the storyline into, like, the next stratosphere. Like, they're just upping the ante and upping the stakes. So it's super interesting. It's super funny. And then they're doing, like, some pretty good character work. And it's really impressive so far. A couple of things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about Murn. I want to talk about Peacemaker. And then I also want to talk about some of the ways in which the storyline has really escalated. So, starting with Murn, like I mentioned at the end of last week's video and at the end of last week's episode, we discover that, Adebayo discovers that Murn is a butterfly, and that's how the episode ends. I even said in my video, I bet it's something where it's like, it's not a big deal or something like that. It's going to be okay that he's a butterfly. And that's exactly what happens. Harcourt pulls up. She reveals that she already knew. Diebeard already knows. I'm not going to call him Economos. Diebeard also already knows, and literally puts his fingers in his ears whenever it comes up. And it turns out that Murn is actually one of, like, the good butterflies. And I love the line where he says something like, they thought I was too emotional or something like that. And Adebayo's like, you were too emotional. And that's a joke that lands because they built that up with the whole scene where earlier in the season where Murn was talking to, I think it was Diebeard, about having feelings and feeling emotions and stuff like that. But yeah, he inhabits the worst guy that he could find in hopes of being able to stop the butterfly that inhabited Senator Goff, who is the queen of the butterflies. And we also learned through this that when a butterfly inhabits a person, that they retain that person's memories. So I think that's something that might come into play a little bit more later. It came into play in this episode, but I think it's something that might come into play a little bit more in these final two episodes as well, because that's an interesting little tidbit. And I don't feel like they would do that just to kind of throw it out there. Like, I feel like it's going to have some sort of impact at some point. This whole scene, the main reason I'm talking about this scene where everyone knows that Murn is a butterfly, because now Adebayo knows, Harcourt knows, Diebeard knows. This is important because it plays into a lot of the work they did with Peacemaker in this episode. There's a scene later in the episode where Adebayo and Murn both say things about the butterflies that were not common knowledge, as if they were common knowledge, in front of Peacemaker. I can't remember what Murn says. I think it's something about they can stop them if they destroy the amber fluid or something like that. And then Adebayo mentions the cow. Like, how do they keep making this shit more ridiculous? Like, you got butterflies and now you got a cow. But she mentions the cow, and Peacemaker's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they clearly are ignoring him and keeping this secret from him, and these secrets, I should say, from him. And that pisses him off, and rightfully so. And that scene is so good because we know the isolation that he's had to deal with, the guilt he feels over his brother, his desire to regain his father's love, or just gain his father's love. I don't know if he lost it when he killed his brother or if he never had it, but essentially being like this isolated person who's feeling all of this guilt over all the things that he's done. He finally gets on a team full of people that he probably at this point now considers to be friends. They got the whole group chat. Like, it feels like a team. And then he shows up and they're clearly keeping secrets from him. And I felt like that scene was so, I don't want to say powerful, but like, it works because of all the work that the show has put into making Peacemaker a little bit more three-dimensional and making it so that we can now see how much he enjoys being part of this team. So this guy's to feel like a huge fucking betrayal for him, for the people that, he finally feels like he has some people around him he can trust and be friends with and be cool with. And they're stabbing him in the back by not telling him this information. So I felt like, that scene with Murn where everybody knows it really helps kind of like feed into that scene later where Peacemaker discovers that everyone's keeping secrets from him. So really good work there by the writers to kind of like, build up scenes for, you know, later in the season that really rely on things that have happened earlier in the show. And that sounds like kind of like writing 101 almost, but you don't get a lot of that. You get a lot of shows and movies that kind of like go for the emotional hit, but they don't do the work leading up to it to actually give you that emotional impact. They're just shamelessly trying to go for tears or anger or excitement, whatever emotion they're trying to elicit. So really great work, I think, on them by building up to that scene, which I thought was a really great scene. And another good job I think that they did as far as like with Peacemaker is that scene where he plays the piano. He starts playing the piano and immediately my eyes start to roll because in the previous scene, we see, you know, him having kind of like a little moment with Harcourt. She tells him, you know, call him by her real name. She said, you know, you're 85% a piece of shit, but the rest of you's kind of cool. And they have a moment and he starts playing the piano and I'm like, they're going to have that corny ass shot because he looks around before he starts playing it to see if anyone's there. I'm like, he's going to be playing it and they're going to have that corny ass shot where like Harcourt or something is going to be standing in the doorway and he's not going to know she's there. And she's going to be looking at him like all affectionate and shit. Like, oh, he's muscular, but he plays the piano. Oh, and I'm like, oh, please don't do that corny shit. Like, please don't do that. But they didn't. They just let the piano ride out. And it turned into a really good scene with him just playing the piano. It was shot really well. It was framed really well, lit really well. It was a cool scene. It looked like he was actually playing. Because I was looking for that. Like, are we going to see any moments where it looks like, where there's no fancy camera work? Like there's a lot of times where it's like, okay, you see just his hands, you see just his face, you see him from behind, but there's a shot from the side where you could see his whole body and hands playing the piano. And I thought that was just a really cool scene. I feel like you can't really go wrong if you're trying to tug at the heartstrings by having a piano being played. Like, I don't know, for me, it always works. Like one of my all-time favorite movie scenes is in The Pianist. And it's just a scene where he just plays, I think, Moonlight Sonata on the piano, and it's just a beautiful fucking scene. And I think that they were smart by not going the corny route and having someone watching him like, oh, this is showing me how much of a deep person he is, or how like making him more human or relatable. Like not having that corny ass person watching him thing, and then also just letting that scene be that scene and just kind of like sitting in it and watching him play the piano. I thought it was a really, really, really good scene. And we also learned that he might have killed his brother with his bare hands. It looked like, I can only imagine maybe their father was maybe trying to train them, so to speak, to, you know, to fight, to be villains like him or whatever, be super racist, whatever. Because we saw last week that he had him kill a guy when he was a kid. So maybe he had them training and they were like fighting or something like that. And maybe Peacemaker killed him by accident. And maybe that's what kind of puts him into that, you know, moves him away from maybe growing up to be a potential racist to being a little bit more like, I don't want to say a pacifist, because like he's not clearly not a pacifist because he's going to kill anybody for peace. But I think that's kind of like where that oil and water kind of mixture in his personality comes from. Like, you know, I want peace, but I'm also going to kill motherfuckers to get it. So I think that's kind of where that mixture comes from. Like he was probably brought up as a kid to be violent, but then after that ends up killing his brother. Now he kind of like has that peaceful part kind of like bleed into him as well. So I thought that was, again, really good work by the writing on this show. I believe all these episodes were written by James Gunn, and yeah, great work. So the storyline kicks into high gear as well. We learned that the amber fluid that the butterflies drink comes from a cow in this barn that they're apparently going to go after in the next episode. I can't wait to see what this thing looks like, because I can't imagine it's just going to look like a regular cow, just like these butterflies don't look like regular butterflies. Regular cows don't milk amber fucking fluid. Like, it's got to be a gnarly looking cow, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Peacemaker's father, Augie, is released from jail. He ends up putting on his old white dragon costume, summoning all his Hail Hitler-ass followers, and they plan to go kill Peacemaker once and for all. So that's gonna happen. Well, that's gonna almost happen. I don't think we're gonna get a season 2 if he's successful. Peacemaker's diary, which Adebayo planted last week, is discovered by the police when they're searching his house, and it has a whole lot of incriminating shit in there. Like, it exposed the butterflies, but it makes him sound crazy. It's like, oh, he has a thing in here where butterflies have inhabited humans. Like, what? Something's wrong with this guy. And then it incriminates him in a bunch of murders. So now he's got his father after him. He's got the butterflies after him, and now he's gonna have the public after him. So like it's all bad for Peacemaker for these last 2 episodes. And then lastly, my absolute favorite thing of this episode, and probably my favorite, I don't want to say, I don't know if it's my favorite scene of the season. It probably is though. When they're escaping, when they being Vigilante and Peacemaker, when they're escaping from his house through the roof, Peacemaker falls out of a tree, breaks the mason jar that the golf butterfly is in, and the butterfly inhabits Detective Song. And then later we see Detective Song kind of like summoning a whole bunch of butterflies, which she did over the internet somehow. She summons a whole bunch of butterflies. They arrive in like these little ships and shit. And they take over the entire police station, like all the cops, everyone in jail. And this scene happens over some song. I don't know the song, but whatever that song is, the way that song with what was happening in that police station, and it was also cut with Augie putting on his, white dragon shit. That was so fucking cool, man. That was such a cool scene. Like, and it was long. Like, we get to see, it kept escalating because I'm thinking like, okay, the song starts and she's just, Detective Song is just kind of like, okay, the butterflies are coming. They come in little ships. I'm like, oh, this is cool. But then like it escalates where like, oh, they go into police. I'm like, oh shit, they're taking over all the police. Oh my goodness. Then it goes, oh shit, they're taking over all the inmates too. It's like, and that the music, the song that went with it was super fucking cool. They're all walking down the hallway in slow motion, trying to learn how to smile, which they set up with Detective Song talking about that earlier, saying every time you inhabit somebody, you got to learn how to smile again. So they shows all of them like trying to smile while they're walking down in slow motion to this song. That was such a cool fucking scene, man. James Gunn really knows how to take shit that on paper seems really fucking weird, and then you watch it and it's really fucking cool. And that scene was so fucking cool, man. I loved it. I loved it. So I kind of want to highlight some of the funny moments too in this episode. There were some really good ones. The classroom scene at the beginning where Peacemaker's like got names for all these kids and shit. That was incredible. That was an awesome fucking scene. Peacemaker and Vigilante. I said it last week or the week before that duo in particular is funny every single time they're together. And that scene where they were interrogating the golf butterfly through the mason jar was incredible. Like that shit was so funny. Like I could watch those two go back and forth all day. Like it could be just give me a whole episode of just Peacemaker and Vigilante conversation, and I'll probably be in stitches the whole fucking time. Like it was so funny. And then and then it continues once they finally get into the car that police chief got for them. I forget his name, but the new police chief, the one that's working with Murn, and then that is now inhabited by a butterfly. They take off in the car, and Vigilante says his phone can be traced and throws out the window. He's like, that was a secure phone. What the fuck? And he's like, I had a fuck ton of super cute pictures of Eagly on there. I don't know why, but I thought that line was fucking hilarious, dog. Like, because you think of people like who have pets and shit, like they probably got pictures of their dog or pictures of their, and if he had said, I had super cute pictures of, and say he had a dog, it wouldn't have been nearly as funny. But the fact that he has a fucking eagle, he's like, I had some super, like, what does a super cute picture of an eagle even fucking look like? So like, man, that line was so funny. And then the last one that I thought was funny was when everybody discovers the cops that were killed, which were killed by the new police chief. And he's like, yeah, I know it wasn't Peacemaker. I saw who did it. He described some fucking hamburglar. Like, who comes up with this shit, man? Man, that was funny. And then the extended scene at the end is him trying to practice looking sad over the police officers he killed. So not as good as extended conversations between Peacemaker and Vigilante, but hey, I'll take it. So 2 more episodes left. Again, I thought this episode was great. It did everything perfectly. It went for some emotional moments and it nailed them. It escalated the storyline perfectly. It's really building out these relationships and making Peacemaker a bit more 3-dimensional. It's continuing to be, it seems like it gets funnier every week. So, man, this show is rolling, and it's going to probably be on my top 10 of 2022 because I'm loving it. It's really fun. It's really well made, and James Gunn, man, he's fucking killing it right now. So 2 more episodes left. I'll see you guys next week for episode 7. Till then, peace.